so many people have got so many theories on it.
Perhaps it's something to do with insects or bird life or something.
No, I think it's just something from somewhere else. Doesn't belong to us anyway, that's for sure. And it's intelligent.
Yes, hello, I'm Kalinda Clough. My husband and I live on a property 40k north of Boulia. We've lived on that property for 20 years. I lived in the Boulia Shire all my life. My parents used to own Linda Downs and Roxburgh on the Georgina River, and it was in the late 70s that I had my first sighting of the Min Min light. I was about 15 at the time, and my friend and I and my sister, who's 4 years older than me, and her friend, Heather, we went camping on a property 15k up from Linda Downs called Jimbarella, a very good fishing hole, and we'd planned to stay the night there and fish all night. Somewhere during the night, fairly early in the night, I think about between 8 and 9, someone noticed that there must have been a roo shooter shooting on Jimbarella, because we saw a white light kind of above the gidgee trees behind us, and we took not much notice of it, just thinking that it was a roo shooter. A little while later, the light seemed to be getting quite close to us, and we said, gee, that roo shooter's getting a bit close. Someone seemed to mention, and I've just forgotten who, that they couldn't hear anything, like the sound of a vehicle, and the light, which was a white glowing light, which was kind of hovering above the trees, was getting closer, and we all agreed at the same time there should be some kind of noise. And we thought, gee, that roo shooter's getting a little bit close for comfort. And then finally someone said, maybe it's the Min Min light. And we all thought, well, it could be, being very silent. It got an awry feeling went through us when we thought it could be the Min Min light. So we sat there for a little bit longer, but not too much longer. We, in the end, 4 of us squeezed in the front of a Toyota, and we headed back the 15k to Linda Downs, where I lived. We woke up with Mum and Dad and told them we'd just had a sighting of the Min Min light. They said they'd check it out the next day, and we had to go back to roll our swags. So the next day my father came with us on his motorbike, and he looked around in the vicinity of where we thought the light was, but it's really hard to estimate at night how far away it might have been. We feel it might have been about somewhere 5k away, it might have been 2k away, it might have only been half a k before we left. It seemed to hover behind us, it didn't follow us, but it was just an awry feeling that passed through us, and he couldn't find any tracks, so he put it down to that it wasn't a roo shooter. We rolled our swags, and we said that we must have had our first sighting of the Min Min light. And since then, I've had one other sighting in the Boulia Shire. My husband, who is originally from the Winton Shire, he's had a few sightings around Middleton. But the only thing that we both can conclude, that when we've had sightings, it's been in good seasons out here in the west. But I don't really know what the Min Min light is, and I didn't wait around long enough to find out.
Well, I'm Ric Britton, the Mayor of Boulia Shire Council. Just my experience of the light, and that is different stories. I've never actually seen it, and I have spent times roo shooting and stuff like that. But my wife, we spent 6.5 years living at Lucknow when we first got married and raised our family there. And just out Lucknow, you can look out the house, out the louvers of the house, and to the north is all open country and a few channels, and she looked up and there was a light coming, and our neighbours are 24 kilometres over the road there, and she thought, oh, they must be coming over, I'll put the kettle on. So she turned around and put the kettle on and took no notice and kept doing things, and an hour went past and no one turned up. So we rang next morning and no one had been at the house. They'd actually owned a property up in Cloncurry. So, and there was no roo shooters in the area, so after that at dawn or said it must have been, but we just thought it was the neighbours coming over for a drink of tea. So yeah, that sort of put the wind up and a little bit. We've had people out here try and track it, and they still can't come up with what it actually is. So it's a mystery, and it's been seen by every different person, from a rich grazier, a sheep cocky, to probably a shearer, and truck drivers, and so it's not something that they didn't get together and let's make up their story and use it as a tourist instrument. It's actually a mystery.
I'm Maureen Lincoln. I live in Boulia, about as far out as you can get from the cities. Just talking about the Min light. One of the stories I'll tell you, my encounters with it. Grew up with it as a child, living in the bush all my life. I was working in Boulia at the time, which is about 140 miles, that's not kilometres either, that's miles, from Boulia. And the main road to Boulia, we'd had rain and the Georgina River was up and you couldn't cross, so I had to come a long way around to get back to Boulia. I was coming home for the weekend. Anyway, it was dark when I got to Mudjacka, which is about 28, 27 miles from Boulia. And there's some sandhills there, and there's a clump of what they call the waddy trees. And I'd pulled up there to go to the toilet, actually. It was pitch dark by then. And switched the car off and got out and walked around, and all of a sudden a light appeared, the Min light, through the waddy trees. And I knew it couldn't be a kangaroo shooter or anything like that, because you're flat out riding a horse through the trees. They're so thick, you can't drive a car through there. Anyway, I walked over towards it, and of course it moved away, which the Min light will, and walked back to the car, and it followed me back. I stood around the car for quite a while, and it was just probably about 3 feet off the ground. And I spent, I suppose, a good 3/4 of an hour there just watching it. And it's not a big glowy light, it was like a red hot coal, you know. It's probably not quite as big as the moon, big as a soccer ball probably. It's an amazing thing. And ended up getting in the car and driving the rest of the way into town. I think it's something from some outer space somewhere. I've lived in the bush all my life, I'm not superstitious. But it's a very intelligent thing. It can follow you for hundreds of miles. And whether you're doing 20 mile an hour in a car or 80, it can keep up with you. Oh, I've heard a lot of theories of being a bird with phosphorus on it. Gases can't travel at that speed and follow you for that distance, and can switch from one side of the road to the other. Can go higher, or it can come down to ground level. It's mostly see it after we've had rain. On a very still night, you'll never ever have I ever seen one on a windy, cloudy night, usually a fairly clear night. No moon, pretty dark. No wind on a very still night. And I think it's just something from somewhere else. Doesn't belong to us anyway, that's for sure.